First of all, I am going to ask some question related to our previous lecture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, can you please tell me what is the Git branch, or we can say the branches in the Git?
A Git branch is a split in a GitHub repository, which basically branches into another set of folders underneath it in which we can store different files, code, etc.
So basically, in our code repository, we have only one repository, right, for one project.
Mm-hmm.
And if we want to share the different developer code for that repository, then we create the specifically branches, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's suppose we have a project related to WordPress, right? So we created the repository related to this WordPress project, and then we give this repository access to the different developers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when these developers clone this repo into their local machine, then they are going to create their own branches, right? They are not going to work on the master branch, right? Why they are not going to work on a master or main branch?
Because the main branch is the official code.
Yes,
You might, like, for example, if you're working at a company and you're a developer, you don't want to start messing with the main branch of code until you get
yes,
approval from your team or your manager or whatever. So you'd work
yes,
on one of the branches and polish that code, and then only when it's been completely polished, then you could,
yes. So
you could transfer it to the
basically,
main branch,
yes, basically we are not going to create or any type of the files on the main branch because
right?
main branch is
Hello?
the production branch. Yes, yes, I can hear you. Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Okay,
Yes,
sorry.
I
Yeah.
can. I can hear you.
Okay.
But sometime maybe. Okay. So basically, I am saying we are not going to work on the main branch because it is basically our production branch, right? So every
Mm-hmm.
developer who work on that repository, they must have to create their own branches, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the purpose of creating their own branches to separate their code from the other developers, right? So whenever they created the branches, all the branches are independent to each other, right? What does it mean by independent to each other? Could you give me example of it?
Meaning changes made to one branch does not impact
Reflect.
another branch. They operate independently
Yes,
of each other in that sense.
yes, yes, definitely. Because every branch are isolated, right? No impact on other branch, right? So whenever you create the branch, you can push your own code files in it, right? And after pushing the code in that file, you can push this branch into your GitHub web repository, right?
Mm-hmm.
And after pushing the GitHub repository, whenever all the developers are done with their work and push their all the branches in the GitHub, and in the end they want to merge all that feature branches, or we can say the sub branches, into one main branch, right? So how they can
Mm-hmm.
do it? Would you give me the process of it? How we merge our sub branches, or maybe we can say feature branches, into the main branch?
We can see which branch we are in and make sure we're in the correct branch, and then we
Yes,
can
yes, we can create the pull request if you remembered, right?
uh pull requests. Yeah.
Let
And
let me
then
go to my GitHub again.
from there we have the push request and commit requests, you know,
This let's
queries
suppose this
need to be.
one DevOps rapid training, right?
Mm-hmm.
Currently we have three branches, right? Main, dev, and WordPress codes, and right. If I want to merge this dev and WordPress codes and branches into the main one, right? So
Mm-hmm.
basically the dev and WordPress codes then is basically the feature branch, or we can say it is sub branches, right? So after completing whole of the work in that branches, in the end of the project, we need to merge these branches into the main branch, right?
Mhm.
So, why we merge these changes into the main?
Um,
Um,
why do we merge something from the side branches to the main branch?
Because main branches, the actual code of our website are not going to reflect in main if we don't merge it, right? If you remember, you created the two branches with the name of, I think, Rafi and
Mm-hmm.
Rafi1,
Mm-hmm.
and you created the sum file in it, right? But it
Right.
does not show on the master or main, right? So we
Right.
need to merge it into the main, then it will be shown, right? So that's
Correct.
why we merge our sub branches into the main one, right? And what is the process of merging? We just need to create the compare and pull request, this green button, right?
Right.
And after creating the pull request, create pull request, right? And after creating the pull request, it show us you are now to going merge this WordPress code and branch into the main branch, right? And
Mm-hmm.
after that, you just click on merge pull request, hit commit merge, and now it is actually merging my WordPress code then into the main branch, right? So if we can go to DevOps traffic training again, right? So here you can see the WordPress.config file here, right? It now is in the main branch, right?
Right.
So that's the purpose of merging our sub branches into the main one, right?
Mm.
And can you please tell me that how we can uh, push our code from local to remote repository? What are the total commands we can use for?
What's the command that we use for what? I'm sorry, repeat that again.
So I have a question. What command so far we used to push our local changes into the GitHub repository, which is located on the web, right? Or maybe in the cloud.
We use the push request and the commit request.
No. First of all, we give me the sequence of that command, right? First, we need to run
We have to first run
git
that, visual
git add dot command, right?
git add.
So yes, git add command, and after that you need to run the git commit command, and in the end you need to write the git push command, right? And then
Mm,
your local changes are going to be reflected in the cloud repo, right? Means your
right.
GitHub account repository. So that's so if I want to check, what is the command to create a new branch?
It's git
Yes,
git, hold on, I know this one.
git checkout,
Yeah, git checkout,
checkout, and then
name of the branch in quotation.
no.
Oh wait, minus M,
Minus B, B.
minus
B
B.
means branch. Always remember that. Minus B means branch, right? So git checkout minus B and then
um
double quotation
in
and
the name of
write
the branch
the
if you want to call it.
branch name. Yes, you want to create, right? So this command is used to create a new branch, right?
Should I be
So
writing
if
these down? I think I should write these down the class so that next day when you ask me, I can refer to my notes. Or do you want me to just try to
sorry,
memorize these?
I don't remember to send you a note. Sorry for that,
Okay.
because I have a very busy day today. So I
Okay.
am
Okay.
going to send all these command after the class, right? So
Okay.
you can also remember me, right? If I forget, right?
Okay.
You just message me in the group, so I will remember them.
Sure.
So basically, this command is used to create a new branch, right? So if I want to not create a new branch, I just want to move from one branch to another branch. So what is the command for
If you
to
want to move from
switch
one
or
branch to
move
another,
to?
you basically
Yes,
just say git
yes,
checkout and the
yes.
name of the branch.
That's definitely 100% good job. Okay. So hopefully, you learn what is the Git and GitHub and how we can create repository, how we can create branches, how we can push our local code into that repository, right? So that's
Mhm,
really meaningful in the professional environment, right? So
mhm,
you will be master it, inshallah, after you doing practice. Okay,
mhm,
now let's start our actual topic. Today's topic that's really important topic for the DevOps, right?
mhm,
CI and CD, right?
mhm.
So could you tell me, please tell me what does it mean by CI and what does it mean by CD?
CI means continuous integration and CD means
Yes.
continuous deployment.
Okay, so let's start it with the continuous integration. What does it mean by continuous integration?
As you are writing new code in one of those maybe side branches or something like that, you are consistently integrating those new changes into your main code. Um, anytime you're making a change, like let's just say you have a website and you're adding some new page to it all the time, or making some
Yes.
changes, whatever, those are constantly being integrated into the main code of the website, for example.
Yes,
And that
so
process
basically
is
the continuous
automated.
integration is the same like a branches. Let's suppose we have a multiple developers, right? And the multiple developers at a time make some changes in the code, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just give the same example. Let's suppose I have a WordPress website project, right? And 4 to 5 developers are working on it, right? And they are continuously pushes their code into the repository, right? So that code are continuously integrate with our GitHub repository, right?
Mm-hmm.
Means maybe one developer pushes their code or other developer also pushes their code, third one is also doing the same, right? So continuously our new code or new changes are adding into our GitHub repository, right? This is what we call the continuous integration, right? And after make changes in the particular code or pushes into our GitHub repository, right? Then we have another stage with the name of build stage, right? So
Mm-hmm.
whenever you want to write some code for your application, there are some stages involved, right? In a professional environment. First of all, we need to push our changes into the some GitHub repository, or we can say cloud storage, right? So when we push our code into the cloud storage, right, this is what we call the source stage, right? The source
Mm-hmm.
stage is actually the stage in which our the code reside, right? So in that case our code is reside in GitHub repository, right? So source stage basically fetch this code from our GitHub repository, right,
Mm-hmm.
and give this code into the next stage, which is our build stage, right? So do you have an idea what is the build stage is doing?
What
After
is the
getting
build
the
stage doing?
after getting the code from the GitHub repository, source stage gives this application code to the next stage, which is build stage, right? And what the build stage is going to do with this code, do you know?
Uh, yes. Well, okay. Explain the concept one more time and then ask me the question. I think I kind of didn't understand all of
Okay,
what you just
okay,
described.
okay, okay. First of all, when the developer pushes some code into the GitHub repository, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So then we have in a pipeline, one stage is source stage, right? Source stage is basically automatically fetches your changes or fetches your code from the GitHub repository, right? And after the source stage, we have build stage, right? Which fetch the code from the source stage, right? And after fetching this code from the source stage, build stage basically build your code. What does it mean by building the code?
It
So basically building the
okay.
code means you basically run some software or install some application software to run this particular code in the some machine, right? Or we can say basically test our code and run some command in the background to run this code, right? For example, if I want to run the Python application in my machine, so what step we have to follow? First of all, we install the Python environment in our machine, and then we install some editor in my machine, and then I am able to run this code in my machine, right? So this is the basically the build stage are doing. Whenever it fetches your code from the repository, it going to build your actual code, means running your code, right? And after running the code successfully, we do testing, right? There is a one
Mhm.
stage with the name of testing in which QA are going to do the test of your code, right? Maybe unit testing or maybe another testing method, right? And
Mhm.
after the approval, our actual code are going to be deploying somewhere, right? And where our code is actually deployed, maybe in some instance, maybe in some server, or maybe in some background software where you want to deploy it, right?
Mhm.
So we will be learn this all the stages one by one, and we will look into a more detailed example one by one. What is source stage? What is build stage? What is test stage? And what is deploy stage? Right?
Mhm.
Okay. So this is basically the CI/CD. Continuous integration means just automatically integrate the multiple developers code into one repository, right? And
Mhm.
after getting this code, just get this code and move to the next stage, which is build stage, right? And after the building, it gives code to the test stage and then deploy stage, right? So this is
Mhm.
what the continuous integration and continuous deployment means, end-to-end automate process. So whenever the developer pushes some code into the GitHub repository, it automatically built, and after automatically built, it automatically test, and then automatically test it then in the end automatically deployed, right? So this
Mhm.
whole process, this whole stages are totally automated by using the CI/CD, right? So this is
Mhm.
basically the automate process for the deployment of any application, right? For example, if I have Facebook, right? Facebook is an application, right? Let's suppose a Facebook developer makes some changes in their code. For example, they added some new features, right?
Mhm.
Maybe they added a new friend list feature or something else, right? So whenever they pushes their code for the new feature, the pipeline automatically fetches their code, automatically build their code, and after building, they are going to be tested, and in the end, it automatically deployed into the Play Store, right? So this whole process are automated, so there are no manual involvement in it, right? So that's the power of CI/CD, and that's the power of the code pipeline that we are going to learn about, right? After
So,
that, yeah, please.
so if you have a scenario where multiple developers are working on the same thing, let's just say I have
Yes,
one WordPress website with one particular page that they're all working on.
yes.
How do they communicate with each other so that they don't overlap
Okay.
each other's work?
So
Like if
there
someone wants to
was,
turn the button green
yeah,
and someone else at the same time is turning the button blue,
I
how does that work?
understand. I understand. So basically, it works by at the branch level. So whenever it merges the same type of the code, it gives him the conflict, right? Say, so there is a concept of git conflict, right? So whenever they are made some changes in the same line of the code, then GitHub repository give them a conflict that must be resolved before going to the next stage, right? So they will definitely get the error in the source stage if they don't resolve that conflict, right? So whenever multiple developer working on the same file and same line of code, like you say the button, So if someone did it blue, if someone did it green, then the GitHub repository give him error in the form of conflict, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it says you have a conflict of error in this line. So it says you must resolve it before going to the next stage, right? So you have to decide which code of line of developer you have to go with, right? And which you have to exit, right? So let's suppose our manager says you need to go with the green button, then we just go with the green one and we skip the other ones, right? So that's how the things work, right?
Makes sense. Okay.
Okay, so there are some strategies of CI/CD. What is the purpose? It is actually the purpose of using CI/CD. So it provides the automatically deployment and it provides the right way of deployment. And it says making sure it tested before deploy and different stages. So in the real time environment, we have multiple environments, right? For example, dev stage, test stage, staging stage, and prod stage, right? So all the environment have their different pipelines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's suppose I give you example. If Facebook is an application, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if they want to add some new feature, so what do you think about it? They are going to deploy their new feature in the production branch, or maybe in dev branch, or maybe in test or staging at but branch first, because this
Wait, I'm
feature
sorry.
is
Repeat that again.
new.
If
So let's suppose Facebook is an application, right?
right.
And Facebook developer adding the new feature, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now they want to test their feature first, and then it going to be the production one, right?
Right.
So what you say, at what environment they are going to do their testing? Maybe in dev, maybe in test or staging or prod.
Well, if the staging environment is basically where they're kind of collaborating
So
and
basically
making
the
some
dev and test
changes.
is the same. So I just remove the test environment. So you don't need to be confused. So we have three environment, dev, staging, and prod, right? So whenever we made some new changes in the code, so we need to test it in the dev environment, right? So basically dev
Right.
environment is our test environment. Whenever the Facebook developer wants to test their new feature, they are going to deploy that feature in the dev environment, right? And
Yes.
after completing the testing, they again doing testing in the staging environment. So basically, staging environment is the ditto copy of the production environment, right? So
Right.
after completing and passing the code of the in the staging environment, they are going to deploy actual environment, which is our production environment, right? So
Yes.
this dev and staging environment are not visible to the user, right? Only the production environment is visible to the user. For example, the actual Facebook which you actually used is in the production environment, right? But whenever the developer wants to add some new feature, they are not going to push their code in the production one, right? But firstly, they need to test in dev, and after passing and completing in the dev, they move their code into staging, and in the end, they are going to do in production, right?
Right.
What is the purpose of not doing testing in the prod environment?
Well, it's gonna affect the live
Yes, yes.
product.
Because let's suppose if we have some bugs in our code or in our new feature, then it disturbs our users, right? And if
Right.
it disturbs our user, then it goes the negative impact of the application, right? Let's
Yes.
suppose you have some banking application and its downtime are really high, then definitely the users are facing the very realistic and very enough problem, right? So maybe they exit from that bank and they join another great bank who has no downtime and who has more facilities or more futuristic, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
why they are not planning to push their new changes in the production, right?
Right.
So always remember that all environment has their own pipelines, right? If we have three environment, dev, stage, and prod, so we created the three pipelines for it, right? One for dev, one for stage, and one for prod. After that, there are some CI/CD cores. Cores means some features, or we can say some services which is involved in CI/CD to automate our process. First one is AWS code commit, right? So this is the new service for you, but it is basically the GitHub, right? So we either use AWS code commit, which is the GitHub cloud storage provided by AWS, or we can also use our GitHub repository for it, right? So it is our own option. Either we want to use the GitHub repository or we want to use the AWS code commit, right? But the most of the companies are using the GitHub, and some of the companies are using the AWS code commit. But now AWS deprecated this AWS code commit, and they are no longer available for the new user, right? So that's why now the most of the people are rely on GitHub and GitLab, right, to storing our code. And then we have AWS code pipeline. So basically, AWS code pipeline is also the AWS service that provide us to facility to automate all of the stages by creating a pipeline. So pipeline is nothing, just a set of or series of the stages, right? And what series of the stages are involved in it is it involves the source stage, build stage, test stage, and deploy stage, right? And then we have AWS code build service. This service basically provide us to test our code and build our actual code, right? Build means running the code, right? And after testing and running the code, we have last stage with the name of service AWS code deploy. So basically, this service provide us help to deploy code on some backend instance, right? Maybe in AWS we deploy our code EC2 instance, right? Or you can, if you want to create or deploy your code into your on-prem server, you can also do by using the AWS code deploy, right? Okay. So this is the continuous integration. We just already discussed about it, but it's continuous integration. So if you read the first line, developer push the code to the code repository often means more oftenly the multiple developers are pushes the code and your repository may be in GitHub or maybe in code commit, right? A build
Right.
server test.
I have a quick question here, actually,
Yeah, yeah,
before I
sure,
forget.
sure.
So in
Yeah,
my last company, I was very lost in some of these concepts. So I kept hearing this term
yeah,
mono repo. What is
yeah.
mono repo? Is that related to this repository thing, or does that mean something
Re
different?
Repository short form is repo, right? So we can say the repo. So repo is a repository, right? Just like a GitHub repository you created with the name of DevOps. So what we say it's repo, right? Repo maybe repo. So this is the repository, GitHub repository, which we created earlier, right? And in the real-time environment, we can call it code repository or code repo. So whenever I code repo, it means repository, right? And what does it mean by repository? Maybe the repository which is located in my GitHub account or maybe located in AWS Code Commit Service, right? So this is basically simple repository, right? After that, build server tests the code and either is corrected or not, and developer gets the feedback of the test. So these stages are involved in the continuous integration, right? So there,
Wait, you didn't answer the full question. So what does mono mean? Why do they
sorry,
say
what does
mono repo? What does that mean?
mono repo?
Yeah, mono repo. Is that related to this
Mo
concept here?
I don't think so. Mono repo, I cannot hear this term before. Mono repo. Mono maybe in actual term the mono means I think the same, right? So maybe they are calling the same repository, like we did before. Like in the same repository, multiple developers are working on the same project, right? And pushes the multiple code in the same repository. Maybe the mono repo means the same repository, right?
I think I understand now. I just chat GPT'd it. That's what it said.
Or we can say
Monolithic repository.
maybe it is a single repository where the multiple developers pushes their code, right? So this is the same concept maybe.
Yeah, like yes. So basically, it's a version control system where, like you said, yeah, many people are putting code into it,
Yeah, so
and
there
code
are
is
many
simple.
names of it, right? We can say the same repository, we can say the mono repository, like a single repository where the multiple developers work, right? Like in that case, you created the repository with the name of DevOps training, and if we can share this repository with the multiple developers, then it is the mono repository, right? Means same repository where the multiple developer works,
Okay,
right?
makes sense.
So in the real time environment, we work with the same wrapper, because I already tell you that for our one project we create the only one repository, right? We
Mm-hmm.
cannot create the multiple repository for one project, right? Why?
Right.
Because in the GitHub have a concept of branches. We create the multiple branches in the one repository, right? But we cannot create the multiple repository for the multiple developers. Always remember, right?
Right.
Okay. So in continuous integration, there are two steps involved. One is your GitHub repository and the build stage where the actual code is testing and running, right? And in continuous deployment is actually your actual code is going to be deploying somewhere, maybe in EC2 instance or maybe in your on-prem server, right? And this whole process are automated by using the AWS code pipeline. So this is the example of technology stack for CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous deployment. So here you can see that this is our code, first one, right? This is our application code, and it is located in AWS code commit. So you can skip the AWS code commit. Let's suppose this code is located in GitHub, right? So maybe it is
Yes.
located in Bitbucket, GitHub, AWS code commit, all are these version control system. So there are no limitation. We can use any type of the version control system, and the multiple companies have their own version control system. Like some companies prefer the GitHubs, mostly company prefer the GitHub, but the some companies prefer AWS code commit, and some prefer the Bitbucket, and some prefer the GitLab, right? So they have their own type of preferences. But the concept is same, right? If you use the Bitbucket, or maybe if you use the code commit, the commands are same, the branches concept are the same, everything are would be the totally same, right? So we can do work on the AWS code commit and see what type of the commands are changes or not, right? So this is the same git command that we are going to utilize for the AWS code commit, right? And after pushing the code in some repository, there are next stage with the build stage, right? And build and
Mm-hmm.
test stage are involved in the AWS code build, right? So basically, this is the service. AWS code build is basically the AWS service that provide us the facility of two things: what? Build and test output, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also, if we don't want to use the AWS service for building and testing code, we have some other third-party tools for it, right? Maybe you hear the name of Jenkins, right? So this is
Yeah.
the third-party server that provide us the facility to build and test our source stage code, right? So we can use the multiple services for the same type of work, right? If we want to build and test our code, either we can use the AWS code build service, or either we can use the Jenkins third-party tool service, right? We are going to do work on both of them, right? And
Yeah.
after that, we have a deploy stage. Deploy means your actual deployment, where your code are going to be deployed, right? Either in EC2 instance, on-prem instance, AWS Lambda, ECS. So basically, these are the services that provide us the facility to deploy your code, right? So first of all, we have Elastic Beanstalk, or we have another service that provide us the facility of deploy code, right? One is Elastic Beanstalk, one is Core Deploy that provide us the facility to deploy our code in EC2 instance, on-prem instance, maybe in Lambda or maybe ECS, right? So these are the some services and their functionalities, right? Don't need to worry about it. We can do research in it one by one. And in the last we have a concept related to AWS code commit. So as I said earlier, it is the same GitHub, right? This is the version control system, and it help us to provide us the facility of same as GitHub to collaborate with a different developer. So our main actual code has some backup, right? But now AWS has deprecated this service, AWS code commit. Now the new developers or new AWS joiners are not able to create this service, right? Because these services are not really useful in the real environment. Most of the companies and people are prefer more GitHub. So that's why AWS conclude this service, right? So we can verify it by going to the AWS account. Okay. Okay, sorry. This is my AWS account. Okay. Let's move further to our very main topic, which is AWS. Here you can see the AWS console in front of you. So maybe you have some knowledge related to AWS. Like what type of the knowledge currently you have? Can you please tell me?
Um, I mean, I have some knowledge on the identity and access management feature thing, but
Okay, so this
I don't
is,
have
so
any.
let me tell you. So this is basically the AWS console, right? And this is the very front page with which will be open whenever you want to sign into your AWS account, right?
I think I use
And
AWS to make a virtual machine and test around and
okay,
play around with it. That's all I did in AWS.
okay, don't worry about it. We can learn the many services in it. Okay, so first of all, we have in the proportion, we have a search bar, right? In which we can search many services. Like if I want to search related to database RDS, right? Relational database. So there is a service with the name of RDS. If we want to discuss about the EC2, then we can search it by using the search bar. Here is an EC2. If we want to search related to code commit, right? So here it's a code commit. Let's go into it by clicking on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Open in link new tab. So it will be open my AWS code commit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's check it is available for the new use. Here you can see the message. Please read this message in a loud voice.
Which message? Oh, AWS code commit is no longer available to new customers. Existing customers of code commit can continue to use the services as normal.
Yes, so as I said earlier, the AWS code commit is no longer available for the new customer, only the existing customer using the AWS code commit, right? So this
Mm-hmm.
is basically same like the GitHub repository. In the same like GitHub, we create repository in the same AWS code commit, we can create the repository. But if you are the new user, you are unable to create it, right? Because the AWS deprecate, or we can say the just hold on these services because these services are not useful or not used by any of many of the organization or company or people, right? So that's why they conclude the service. But
Mm-hmm.
I am created because I am the previous user of the code commit. As you can see here, I already created the two repository, which is 7 months ago and one is 4 months ago, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I am able to create the new one, but maybe you are not able to create it because maybe you are new user, right? So this is the same concept, just like a GitHub. Let's suppose I want to create a repository with the name of DevOps training. I can easily create it. Dev repository name DevOps training, and after that, just click on create.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it says repository successfully created, right? Now, if I want to, so this repository is currently located at where? In my AWS account, right? This
Yes.
repository is not located in my local machine. Now, if I want to clone it into my local machine, then what is the command for it?
Git clone.
Yes, git clone, and after that you have to paste the HTTPS URL, right? So you can paste this clone URL, copy this URL, just click on it. It automatically copy this repository URL, right? and we just need to go to that particular folder. Let's suppose I want to copy this folder in music folder, right? So just open the command prompt and write git clone, and after that just paste the URL of this repository. It's going to be cloned into that particular folder. So if you remember, the commands are the same. All the commands have the same: git clone, git branches, git push, git add, but the services are totally different. Like AWS provide us the git commit repository. In the GitHub, we can create the GitHub repositories, right?
Wait,
But the
so
command, yeah.
wait. In this particular scenario, we're using AWS and we're copying AWS stuff to our local machine. So why are we
Yes.
using Git? I thought Git commands were only specific to GitHub.
No, it is not only specific to the GitHub, it is specifically to the repositories, right? So basically in the backend, AWS code commit basically deploy the GitHub repository, right, in their backend, right?
So
Which
Git
we,
is an industry standard general
yes, yes.
term, not specifically to that website.
Not specifically to the GitHub, right? If we're working on the Bitbucket, if we're working on the Git tab, the Git commands are the same, right? Because Git is a version control system. If you remember that, we get the difference between Git and GitHub, right? So GitHub is just like a platform, is a service that provide us the facility of Git, right? And the
Mm,
same for the AWS Code Commit. AWS Code Commit is a service that provided by AWS, and it provides the same facility of Git, right? So Git is
mhm.
the different concept, and the we can say the tool or service is a different concept, right? So GitHub and AWS Code Commit are the facilitators that provide us the facility of Git, right? So
I
that's
see.
why the actual concept are the same, right? Same like that. But in our case, we are going to use the GitHub repository. There is no need to create the code commitment because the concept are the same and it is already deprecated by AWS. So we don't need to, I am going to delete this, right? And always remember that there are some costs associated with the service which you created on the AWS. So before creating the service, it is really good practice to check the cost of that particular service, right? How we
Mhm.
can check the cost of the AWS service? You can go to the AWS calculator. So these are the very small things, but it really matters when you're working on the project, right? So that's why it is a good practice to calculate the cost first before creating the AWS service, right? Click on
Yes.
create estimate. So if I want to create the AWS code commit repository, I want the cost for it. So I search the service with the name of AWS code commit, right? So it is not showing because it is deprecated. So let me check. Code. Yes, it is deprecated, so that's why not showing. So let's suppose I want to calculate the code for EC2 instance, right? So you can go to configure, right? And here you can select the type of the instance that you want to create, right?
Mhm.
What type of the instance you want to create. Let's suppose I want to create Windows instance, right? And what type and how many number of instances you want to create. Let's suppose I want to create only one instance, and how many CPUs and how many memory you want to take this instance. Let's suppose I want to take the one CPU and this memory, right? T2.nano, and I want to add the storage in it, same like a hard drive, right? So I want a hard drive with the 500 GB, right? So it calculate the cost, which is 43 USD per month, right?
What are we exactly calculating here? The how much what?
Okay,
The
so it show if I am going to the details here, you can see that the EC2 instance costs are $3.80 for month, and the actual storage cost is $40, right?
storage of our code, right? We're taking up space for
Storage
code.
storage means hard drive, right? Which
Mm.
attached to your server, right? Let's suppose we have this window machine, right? So there are some storage associated with it, right? So the actual main cost of the storage is $40, and the specs wise instance is $3.80, right? Because we selected the very small instance, right? If I go further, let's suppose I created this instance, then it cost must be higher than it, right? So let's suppose I want to create on demand instance, right? So here you can see that. Let me refresh this. Okay. Okay, select the window instance, right? And now I want to create an instance with high functionality, right? Let's suppose this instance T3 small, right? Who has 2 GBs, and I want to create on demand, right? And I want to attach the volume. Let's suppose 100 GB, right? So let's see how many cost is. So basically now the EC2 instance cost is $27 and our storage cost is $8, right? So that's how you can calculate the cost for the particular service by using the AWS calculator before creating that service, right? So it is a really good practice. Before creating any service on AWS, you need to calculate their cost, right? Okay, let me go to my AWS console. Okay, this is our AWS console, right? And here you can see the recent visited services that I am mostly using that account, billing and cost management, right? So your actual costs are going to be shown here, right? If you can
Mm-hmm.
see here, my monthly cost for this account are approximately $525, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because currently is 30, so that's why from 1 to 30 it cost me $475, right? And if I want to check which services are give me the cost, like it says the quick site have a $403 for this account, VPC has 56, and RDS has $10. So it gives you whole cost analysis. If you can go to billing and cost management, you can see the detailed cost analysis of your cost, right? Where your actual costs are spending on what services. You can see it by going to billing and cost management service, right? Here, if I'm going to analyze your cost in Cost Explorer,
Okay, Zain, yeah, you can continue.
yeah. So here you can see the detailed analysis of your cost, like in which month, give me cost in August. For this account, I have total $4 cost because there is no resources deploy here. And for September, there are total 584 cost because I deploy many services in it, and in October it cost me this, and in November it cost. So if you want to see the detailed analysis of your account cost, you can see it by going to the Cost Explorer option, right? Now go to the AWS console again. Now here you can see the search bar, and after very search bar, we have this option. This is basically the Cloud Share terminal, right? And after that, we have some notifications, question mark, and this is our setting of the account. And this is represent the region that is really important. So currently I am in North Virginia, right? If you remember in our first class, we discussed the concept related to regions, related to availability zones, and in the end related to data centers, right? So
That's where your
availability,
the on-prem databases is being hosted in North Virginia, the one that you're using.
yes. So basically, if I am in the US East 1 region, means which is North Virginia region, so whatever services I am going to create, it going to be created in North Virginia data center, right? If I am going to the US EC2 region and whatever services I am going to make in in that region, then it automatically deployed on Ohio region and Ohio data center, right? But
Mm-hmm.
always remember that this is the region. Region is a broad term, right? So if I am talking about the North Virginia, and if I can ask you, hey, Rafi, you have one region with the name of North Virginia, right? And someone asks you, how many data centers, or we can say the availability zones in the North Virginia region, then what's your answer?
How many data centers are in that region?
Yes. So basically, AWS create the many data centers or many availability zone in the different regions, right? For example, in North Virginia region, maybe we have three or availability zone mean data centers, right? So
Mm-hmm.
maybe they have different data centers on different location, but in the North Virginia, right? If I am going to the Ohio, right, it is the same located in America, but the region is different, Ohio. And in Ohio, maybe they have four data centers or maybe five data centers, which we call the availability zones in the term of AWS, right? So now I am in Ohio, right? So whatever I am going to create in that particular region, they are going to deploy in Ohio region, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the region. As we know, the AWS has a prototype of the region, and they have deployed their data centers all over the world, like South America, Europe, Canada, Asia, United States, all of those stuff, right? So this is our region, and this is our related to account. Like this is my account ID, this is my username. AWS SSL uses and totally right. And same like that. Uh, if we can explore further. So okay, now let's go back to our main topic, which is CI/CD. So first of all, before creating the pipeline, we need to discuss about some services. So first one is GitHub, or we can say the AWS code commit. In that case, for CI/CD, we are going to use AWS GitHub. Sorry, only GitHub, which we already discussed. And another concept, which we need to learn about the AWS service is EC2 service, right? Because we are going to utilize this service in our CI/CD pipeline, right? So before moving to the pipeline, we need to learn about the service, what is the services, right? So if someone asks you, hey Rafi, I want an instance, I want an server, I want a node, all of these names are the same, right? If you can say the machine, if you can say the node, if you can the server, if you can say the instance, all we can say it is a machine, right? So this machine we can create either in cloud, either we can purchase from our local market, like currently we are doing meeting in our machine, it is instance, it is in a server, right? But if I want to create an instance, maybe it is a Linux instance, maybe it is a Mac instance, maybe it is a Windows instance, but not the on-prem, but I want to create the instance in a cloud, maybe in AWS cloud, maybe in Google cloud, maybe in some other cloud. So you can call it cloud instance, and in AWS term we can call the Amazon EC2 instance, or we can say the Amazon EC2 resource, right?
Right.
So currently, if you can see here, instances, right? Currently, it says zero. You have no instances in that particular region, North Virginia, right? So
Right.
if I want to create an instance for that particular region, how I can do it, right? So creating an instance means creating a server, creating a machine, right, for using it, right? So in CI/CD, we are going to make the instance for the deployment, right? Because we have a code for the GitHub repository, right? But where we need to have push our or deploy our code. We need some instance, we need some machine to deploy our code, right?
Right.
So that's why we need an instance. So we are going to create the instance for our deployments here, right? So we are currently discussing about the AWS EC2 instance service, right? This is the service provided by AWS to create any type of instance. What does it mean by any type of instance?
A
Come on.
server. I mean, like just you know, any type of instance means like it could be in any
Yes.
region.
No. Any
No.
type of instance mean maybe Windows instance, maybe Linux instance, maybe Mac instance, right? We
Mm,
have a three type of machines. We have three type of operating system. One is Windows operating system. Second one is Linux. Third one is Mac, right?
right.
So whatever the machine we want to create, we can create it by using this service. Very powerful service, which is EC2 instance, right?
Mm.
And always remember that this service is not free. It has a free tier that we are going to use for our training, but always check before getting the service either what type of the cost are associated with, right? So let's create our first instance.
Okay.
So just click on instance, but before creating an instance, always remember that whenever we create a new instance, there are some service we need to create before, right? If you remember our first class, I gave you some concept related to VPC, if you remember.
VPC,
Yes, VPC.
virtual cloud platform
Yes,
or
virtual private cloud.
private? Okay.
What does it mean by VPC?
Virtual private cloud would be basically your own piece of real estate
So
on the internet.
let me tell you by giving an example or a diagram. One of my project with the name of HarborX. This is let's write the Harbor. Okay. So this is one of my project which I currently working on it. You don't need to focus on the
Mhm.
other services, just focus on let me tell you in which you want to focus on. Okay. Let me more zoom in, right? More zoom in. It is visible now?
Mhm.
Okay. So let me minimize so many. Oh my God. I think it's good now. Okay. So here you can see this green box, right? Could you see it?
Yeah, I can see it.
This green box, and this green box, its name is, are you able to read this name?
Uh, virtual private cloud.
Yes, virtual private cloud. And this box is represent that these whole services like NAT gateway, jump server, EKS cluster node, all of that services, whatever the services is, are created in the particular VPC, right? So always remember that most of the AWS services are created within the VPC, right? So
Yeah.
VPC is basically the virtual private cloud that provide us the facility to manage our different AWS services on it on AWS account, right? So
Mhm.
it basically we can prioritize or we can set the permissions on the VPC level, like what type of the traffic we are going to allow to in our VPC, and what type of the traffic we are going to allow to out of the VPC, right? So we can set the permission level at the level of VPC, what type of the traffic and what type the user can access our VPC, right? So that's
Right.
why whenever you want to create an instance, you need to create a VPC first, right? Without creating a VPC, you are not able to create an EC2 instance for all of that services, right? Like this is our database, this is our net gateway, this is cluster, this is instance, this is net. So all of the services are located in VPC. That means we are not able to create the services without VPC. So first of all, we need to create VPC, then we are able to create that instance, right? So if I am going to my instance, so currently I am going to launch some instance, right? So give some name to that instance, right? Let's suppose I say I want to create a Linux instance, right? So I name it Linux instance, right? And we can name it test, right? After that, you have to select your operating system, like what type of the operating system you want in your instance. I want to create a Linux instance, so what type of the operating system should I have to select?
Uh,
Linux, right? Amazon
Linux.
Linux,
Yeah.
right? If I want to create a Windows instance, then I have to select the Microsoft Windows instance. If I want to create a Mac instance, then I have to set the Mac OS instance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the AWS term, we can say the AMI, right? AMI means Amazon Machine Image, which is actually we can say the operating system. So basically, in AWS we called it AMI, and in simple term we called the operating system, right? So in that level, what type of the AMI we created? Linux, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I select the Microsoft window, right? So what type of the AMI am now created? Windows, right? So just remember that AMI is the operating system, same like that,
Yeah.
right? So if someone asks you, hey, what type of the AMI you created for your instance, you can answer it. I am creating the Linux AMI or Windows AMI or maybe Mac AMI, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me check my internet. It's working fine.
Zain, 1 minute. I have to use the restroom. 1 second. Hey, Zain.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that, man.
Technical
I'm back.
background.
Yes, I'm back.
Okay. So we are discussing about the instance, how we can create it, right? So first
Mm-hmm.
of all, we just name it Linux instance test, right? And after that, we select the operating system for our instance, right? Like
Right.
what type of the instance you want to make, either Linux, Mac, Ubuntu, or Windows, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I give you a difference between AMI and operating system. Both are the same, but the terms are different. Like in AWS, we called it AMI, and in the real life, we can say it operating system, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to create the Linux instance, so we create the Amazon Linux AMI, right? After that, you have to select the type, like what type of the instance you want to create, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in AWS, there are multiple instance type, which you select according to your requirement, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
have a load where you want the 8 CPU processor and maybe 8 GB RAM and 100 GB storage, then you have to select the instance type according to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because we are doing the training, so I am going to select the free tier, right? Free tier means these instances are free to use, right? And
Mm-hmm.
anyone can use it and there is no cost associated with that instance, right? So that's why for the training we are going to utilize this particular instance, right?
Okay.
After that, we have a key pairs. And if I am going to select it, if I want to not create the free tier instance, then you can select according to your requirement, right? What type of the node you want for your application, right? So if I am going to select this type have 8 VCP processors, 16 GB RAM, and it costs you $0.708 per day. Okay, so that's how we can select the instance type. But we are doing training, so T2.micro is enough for us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And after that, you have to select the key pair. That's very important to set with the name of key pair. Do you know what is the purpose of creating the key pair, and then this key pair is associated with my instance? What is the actual use of using the key pair with my instance?
That's what you're using to connect with your
Yes,
instance, right? So that
yes. So this is basically a key, maybe a public or private key that basically we are going to use to connect our instance, right? If I
meaning like
want
when
to,
you say connect our instance, we're connecting the instance to what?
we
Or
are, let's suppose whenever I created the instance, right? Now I want to install some software in that instance, right? Or let's suppose I want to connect with that instance, right? How I
yeah.
can connect it? So I can connect it by using the key pair, right?
Mm-hmm.
So by using this key pair, we are able to connect it, right? So that's why we need to create a new key pair. If you go to create a new key pair, right, and name some key pair like test KP means key pair, right? And you need to select the what type of the key pair you want to spread .pm.ppk for the putty. We are going to create the PM for the open shell that is easily available for us. But if we created .ppk, then we have to install the putty software in our machine. Then we are able to access this machine, right? But
Mm-hmm.
for our ease, we are going to use the RSA type.pm, right? Just click on create key pair, right? So it automatically select this key pair which we just created, and it is going automatically install in my machine, right? Because I need this key pair file whenever I want to access this instance, right? And after that, there is networking, which is really important. Like as I already said, before creating an instance, you need to create a VPC, right? Because VPC is must requirement to create a EC2 instance. Without VPC, you are not able to create any EC2 instance. Why? Because EC2 is must reside in some VPC, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is my some previous VPC which is already located in my account with the name of QuickSight and AWS Control Tower. I am not going to use this VPC, right? So if I am not going to use it, then I have to create a new one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's check how we can create a new VPC. So if you can see here, I am going to my search bar and write the VPC, and here I can see the service of VPC, and I just open in new tab, right? So this is my VPC service, right?
Mm-hmm.
So currently, let it open. So go to VPCs, right? So here you can see the two VPCs, which is already created. We don't need it. We want to create another VPC, right? So you can easily create a VPC by going to this option VPC and more, right? So
Mm-hmm.
always remember that in VPC there are some concept or some services which involve in it, right? Like a subnet, like a route tables, and like a network connection, right? So let me tell you what is it.
Wait, I don't know what
So
these are. Yeah,
yeah,
explain.
yeah. So basically in VPC we have a subnets, right? What is the subnet means? We have two type of subnets. One is public and one is private, right? And if I want to create some public instance, right? Public instance means anyone can access it, right? But the private one are the ones who are not able to access publicly, or we can say access through the internet, right? This
Mm-hmm.
is our private one. So if I
Mm-hmm.
want to create an instance, or if we want to create a public instance, then we must have to create in public subnet, right? If I want to create a private instance, then I have to made it in private subnet, right? So
Sure.
in VPC, there is some subnets, right? You can create many subnet as you want, right? In that case, if you can see it here, here you find the option number of public subnet 2, you can select it 4 or maybe 2, right? According to your availability zone, right? So if North Virginia have 4 availability zone, then you are only able to create the 4 subnet, right? Because you have to remember that you only create the one public or one private subnet in one availability, right? So if North Virginia had 4 availability zone means data centers. If North Virginia have 4 data centers, then we are able to create the 4 subnets in it, right? Or and subnet, always remember subnet either public or private. Public subnet means it is accessible through the internet, and private subnet means it is only accessible in within the VPC, right? It is not accessible on the edge of internet, right? After that, we have route tables. Route table means
Okay,
what
wait,
type?
hold on, one second, one second.
Yeah,
So subnet is basically
part of VPC.
that is accessible by either privately or publicly.
Yes, the subnet, so we can say what is the subnet? Subnet is basically the part of VPC, right? That we can create either public or private, right? So whenever we create some resource, it must be located in subnet, right? And the subnet are located in VPC. There are some layers. Let me open my diagram again. So here you can see the VPC, like the green box is VPC, right? But if you can go further, you can see the two green boxes here, right? And you able to see these names? This is my public subnet, right? Public subnet means whatever the resources in the public subnet are available to publicly, means are able to access through internet, right? But here you can see with the name of protected subnet, we can also say it private subnet. So whatever the resources we made in the private or protected subnet are not able to access publicly, or we can say access through the internet, right?
So subnet is an
So
interchangeable word to like server, let's just say,
we
or
can, no, we can say the VPC is the broad one. And in the VPC, we have subnets. And in the subnet, the actual AWS services are created, right? If we want to create an EC2 instance, first of all, we need to create VPC. And in VPC, we need to select either we want to create our instance in public subnet or in a private subnet, right? If I select the public subnet for my EC2 instance, then my EC2 instance are going to be made public, right? If I want to create my instance in private subnet, then it is a private instance. No one can access it, right?
okay.
Yeah. Okay, let me go here. So this is the subnet, and
So
after that
subnet,
we.
okay, subnet basically is a, I mean, okay, I understand conceptually what it is,
Subnet
but
is
tell
basically a
me,
shield. Subnet is basically a shield that provides us the facility to create resources in it, right? Either if we want to create some public resources, we can create in a public subnet. Either if we want to create some private AWS resources, we can create in private resources, right?
okay,
But
I get that. I get that. I get
yeah,
conceptually what it does, but I need to understand what is it? Is it a what is it made of? Is it a space within the server? Is
no,
it
no, it is not a
a
space in the
folder?
server.
Is it a what is it?
No, it is not a folder, it is a service, right? If you can see here, let me go to the VPC service, right?
Mhm.
So basically, subnet is a service that we can create it by the AWS, same like a VPC. Here you can see that, right? So subnets are created within VPC, right? And the services like EC2 instance, RDS instance are created within subnet. There are some layers involved in it, right? First
I'm
of
trying to
all,
understand from an infrastructure level, what is a subnet? Is it a space?
no,
Is
it is an AWS service that provides us the facility to create resources within the private or public ships. That's a very simple one definition of the subnets. So here you can see the subnets. So this is the total subnet which I created so far, right? So these subnets are associated with some VPC, right? So always remember that whenever you create the VPC, there are some more services involved in it, right? One VPC has multiple subnets, maybe a private subnets and maybe public subnets, right? And what is the purpose of creating the subnets in the VPC? To make resources in that particular subnet, right? If we want to create an EC2 instance, we need to select the subnet for it. Either if I want to create a public EC2 instance, I have to put into the public subnet. If I want to create a private subnet, then I have to put that instance into the private subnet, right? So it will be clear when we are going to create an instance, right? So let's suppose, first of all, we have to create a VPC, and let me go here. Yeah. So just name is VPC. Let's suppose this is my test VPC, right? Test VPC. And after this is the number of availability zone. What I want the two availability zones, right? And I want only the two public subnets, and let's suppose zero private subnets because I want to create an only public subnet for my instances, right? And after that you have select the NAT gateway. So basically NAT gateway is also a service that provides us the facility to the private subnet to access the internet, right? Because the private instances or private subnets are not able to access the internet traffic, right? So if we want to communicate our private subnet with the internet, so we can use the NAT gateway, right? So if we are not creating any private subnet, then there is no need to create a NAT gateway, right? But if we created some private subnets, then you have to create it one NAT gateway at least, right? Because if we want to give access our private subnet to the internet, so we need to make the NAT gateway, right? But in that case, we are not going to create any private subnet, so that's why I am going to create none of the NAT gateway, right? And after that, you just click on create VPC. It's going to create automatically VPCs and subnets related to its internet gateway. So our public subnet are communicated through the internet gateway, right? Internet gateway, we can say, is another service that provide the facility of our public subnet to give access to the internet or all over the internet traffic, right? So when our EC2 instance are, sorry, our VPC created, now go to the instance again, right? And refresh it, right? Just refresh it and check our test VPC is created. Now I just selected this VPC, right? Now my instance are going to be created in that VPC, right? Which I created earlier. But here you can see another option with the name of subnet. Now he is asking, okay, you select the VPC, but now just come to the granular range, right? You want to create this EC2 instance in that VPC. Now you must have to select the subnet for it. Like if I want a private instance, I have to put into the private subnet. If I want to create a public instance, then I have to put into the private subnet, right? In that case, we are going, sorry, refresh it. So in that case, we need to create a public instance. So I put it into the public subnet, right? And auto sign public IP means whenever you create a public instance, you have to enable it because this is our public IP which we are going to access our instance, right? And after that, very important concept, this is security group. Security group, do you know what is the security group?
Not really, no. I don't know what that is.
Okay. So basically the security group is a firewall. Firewall means allow or deny whatever type of traffic you want, right? If I want to only allow my machine IP to access this instance, then I create the security group according to it, right? Then your machine are unable to connect this instance, right? And if I want to assess it publicly, then I create the security group with 00 port so anyone can access, right? So this is basically the firewall, or we can say the shield that provide us the facility to select what type of the instances or what type of the traffics are going to communicate with my instance, right? So you can, it is act as the firewall, right? So let's suppose you can select the type, like what type of the traffic you want. So this is, I am going to select the inbound. Inbound means incoming traffic, right? Incoming traffic means, let's suppose if I want to create, if I want to connect with this instance with my local machine, then this is my incoming traffic, means the traffic comes into the instance from my machine, right? So I want to come traffic from my machine, so I select the SSH port, means this is the Linux port 2022, and source type I select anywhere, means any type of the computer can access this machine, right? So you can also access this machine, I can also access this machine, or you can also select 00, means any type of the port can be accessible through this security group, right? So it is just act as the firewall or extra security feature for your instance, right? And after that, you have to select the storage. Storage means your external storage, or we can say the hard drive storage. I want just the 8 GB storage for it, right? And this is the volume type, GB2, GB3. You can select any type of it according to it. This is just the SSD, same like SSD of your storage, right? After selecting all the features, you just need to click on launch instance. So it automatically, first of all, creating security groups and then attach the security group rules with my EC2 instance. And in the end, my instance are able to create, right? Now my EC2 Linux instance are successfully created. If you can see it, is his name is Linux Instant Test, right? Its state is running, but it is currently in initializing state, right? We need to make it in the running state, so we need to wait here. Once it's going to be in ready state, then we can move further and try to assess this instance from my machine, right? And we can check either we are able to assess it or not, right? So once it status check is in running, we can discuss how we can assess this instance from my local machine, right?
Yeah.
Okay, our status check is 2 by 2 check passed, means it is in ready state. Now I want to connect with it, so how I can do it? So first of all, you click on connect, right? And you just go to this connect, right?
So everything we're doing right now is we are setting up an instance on AWS.
Yes, instance machine and some resources which associated with it, right? First one is our VPC, and then we have security group, right? Okay, so it says why
I think I
I
did this
not
once with one of my friends,
okay.
but I don't remember any of this at all.
Okay, let me check what is the issue, why it is not able to connect. No, yeah, it's disconnected. So here you can see that I am now in the VPC, right? I connected through the AWS console, right? But if I want to connect this VPC through my local machine, then how I can do, right? So you just need to go connect and then go to SSH client. If you remember, we enable the SSH port, right? In our security group 2022 port for any of the user. Any of the user means any machine can access this VPC, right? But if you don't want to access this machine from any of the machine, you can make it granular to the some public IP of your machine, right? So how we can do it? So it says if you want to connect this instance with your local machine, you need to have this key test kp.pm. If you remember, this is key pair which we created earlier, right? So it
Yeah.
says you must have this key pair before connecting this instance, right? So let me run this command first. So first of all, you need to go into that folder where your key pair is located, right? So this is my key pair. There are two key pairs with the same name. Let me check. Else kp, right? There is three here with them. Let me delete this.
Okay, after we finish this, you're gonna let me do all this by myself, right?
Uh, you can do it. If you are unable to do it, we can do it in the next lecture, right? I
Okay.
will tell you how you can create it, right?
I definitely want to
Okay.
do this because it's like
Yeah, it's
there's
very
no way I'll
important.
learn this unless I do this over and over by
Definitely,
myself.
definitely. But it is also really important if I tell you first, right? So you
Right.
have some concept or some type of the description or definition in your mind, right? Before creating it, right?
Yeah.
So this is my test KP. So if you want to create an EC2, if you want to connect with the EC2 instance with your local machine, you must go to that folder where your key pair is located, right? So my key pair is located in download folder. So you just need to open this folder in your command prompt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you can also open it in the git bash, whatever you want, right? So it
Yeah.
is better if you can use the git bash for it. So it is really convenient. But we need to make sure that we move to that folder where our key pair is located, right? If you remember, our key pair is located at where? My download folder. And currently I am in what directory? To check the directory. Uh,
Um,
cd.
you're in
Okay, Lenovo
Lenovo desktop.
desktop download. So already desktop CD, like the downloads. Yeah, now I am in downloads folder, right? Because my
Yes.
key pair is located. If you go to the ls mean list directory means list of the files which you currently have in that folder, right? So it
Yep.
will open all the files or in that particular download folder, right? Because it
Right.
is a lot of the file, that's why it takes time. But we can also make sure it by going to the downloads, and here you can see the test KP, right? So we don't need to verify it by this. I'm just going to exit it, right? Now we need to write the command which we copied earlier, if you remember from here, right? Chmod means this is the Linux command that gives the permission of that key pair uh, uh, to access it publicly or access the root one, right? It gives the root access to this public key, right, on my machine. So that's why we need to run this command first in my git bash, right? You just need to paste this command. Okay, it's a node password. Okay, I have test kp.pm, test kp.pam. Let me check if downloads. Let me open this and CMD here. Let me check. Okay, test kp.pam, the same file. Let's check the extension here. Properties. So the type of the file is file. Why? Okay, I think I need to let's see. Yeah, okay. I removed the dot pam here, right? If you remember. So that's why it's giving me error. Okay. So this is my test kp.pam file. Let's go to the git bash again and write the same command again, right? Now it gives the permission of my key pair to the root one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now we just need to run this command, connect command, this one, right? SSH -i keep here and EC2 user public IP, right? After running the command, we are able to connect our actual instance, which is located on AWS, right? Paste and press enter, right? And after that, you just says yes. Yes, now you are in the EC2 user, right? And now I am in the Linux machine 2023. And here you can see the public IP of that machine. Now, whatever you want to do in this machine, you can do it, right? So that's how all the things work for it, right? Okay, this is the end of our lecture. Hopefully you learned a lot of things from here. And we can do the same thing in our next lecture in your computer. So you just need to remember the main concept related to it, like what is EC2 instance, what is VPC, what is security group, what is key pair. And before of that concept, you must know about some CI/CD because we create this service for our CI/CD, right? So I will share this whole slide with you, and also I will share some Git command with you. You just need to remember me once, right? So I will be sharing, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the end of the lecture, and please send me the requirements you want in the data analytics related to data analytics, right? Like what type of the skill set you want. So I will discuss it with my friend,
Okay.
and if he will be agree on it, then we discuss it and we can schedule the meeting with him, right?
Okay.
Okay. And second thing, Rafi, if it is convenient for you, can you send the payment of the 2 days, 2 lectures? The first one we already did. This is the second one. So there are two payments, I think, pending, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So if you are able to send it, then we can do the next 3 payments after the 3 lectures, right?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Rafi. Thanks for joining.
Okay, man. Thank you
Uh,
so much.
Thank you